Alright, so back at it again with the Illrigger, and this time we're going to talk about the Shadowmaster. Real quick, before we get into that, I have to talk about a mechanic that I kind of glazed over a little bit with Baleful Interdict, and it's all about the second paragraph right here. When you or an ally hits a target you can see with any seals on it, you can consume the seals to make the attack deal an extra 2d6 necrotic damage to the target per seal consumed. That doesn't require any reaction or anything. If you're within 30 feet of the target, you regain 2 hit points for each die of damage your seals deals. And then this will go up at 10th level where they deal an extra 1d6 damage. So what did I glaze over? The fact that you're making the attack deal an extra 2d6 necrotic damage means that this damage right here is critable. So you can place it, wait on one of your buddies to land a crit, or most likely you in the instance of the painkiller, right? Because you're going to have advantage on those attacks, you get the crit fish and, yada yada. Meaning that you're going to set this, kind of wait on it, right? And then whenever the crit hits, you bam, consume these. I like this interaction. I just have to note that that does change the kind of how I'm viewing the power of this. So keep that in mind as we go on and as we get into the Shadowmaster. And just real quick before we talk about that subclass, if you're new to my channel here, I talk about a lot of D&D related content, some music, books, just kind of whatever comes to my mind. I also do some design live streams. I try to do it once a week, usually on the weekends. So if that sounds like something that would interest you, why not go ahead and subscribe? And if you're not familiar with my review style, go check out my first video on the base class of the Illrigger to see why I've highlighted some of this stuff in color and, yada yada. But let's get on to the review. Shadowmaster. The hidden assassins of hell, the Shadowmasters serve Moloch and excel at stealth and disguise. Moloch is the Lord of Styx, the city of lies. He strives to rule hell through subterfuge, deceit, and trickery. His Illriggers are assassins, striking from the shadows or using deception to earn high-ranking positions close to powerful rulers. Many Shadowmasters run networks of spies and assassins who have no idea of the internal provenance of their master. The Shadowmasters are sworn not to reveal themselves and to take their own lives before betraying their true allegiance. Many Shadowmasters have elaborate plans ready for their own assassinations so that, should someone get close to discovering their true identity, they will be killed by their own assassins, preserving the truth. Of course, these killers have no idea who they were really working for. So this subclass's features. Contract with Moloch. Moloch's elite assassins must be able to survive to get close to their enemies and quickly eliminate them. Your 2 invoke authorities that you're going to get, as a reminder, these are very similar to Channel Divinity. So invoke authority, fade as an action. You can become invisible and can, as a part of this action, attempt to take the hide action. The invisibility ends after 1 minute, or if you make an attack, or cast a spell. Ooh, gotta clarify that. So I actually really like this one. I think that would normally be a purple one. Had it not been for Moloch's Blessing also being offered here, and these competing for the same, long rest resource. Your invoke authority for Moloch's Blessing, I marked this one as pink because I kind of question exactly how strong this could be, As a bonus action, you can place all your remaining seals on a creature. Let's pull this calculator over here. Let's assume that you are a 3rd level character who has a 16 in charisma, right? So your modifier is going to be a +3. So that's 3 possible instances of 2d6 damage. 2d6 damage on average is going to be 7, so 3 times 7 means that out of this you could possibly get 21 additional damage, on average. Now that's really good. We're talking about at least 2nd, if not 3rd level spell slot to have to do something like that. This is only once per long rest, so that's not really super scary. Let's talk about this at let's say your charisma mod is an 18, so let's say 4, and we know that this being 3.5 for the average damage roll of a d6. So let's say 3d6, so 3 times 3.5 times 4. So that's going to be 42 damage on average that you do with that. Let's take it further and assume that, 10.5 times 5, 52.5 damage you're doing on average with this. So this is a very, very strong use of your invoke authority. You're going to get this once per long rest. It's competing for the same resource as Fade. The only reason why I think Fade is going to be blue is like, I just don't think that this is as good of an effect as the Moloch's Blessing. Like, sure, out of combat, this is most likely going to be the one you're going to use, right? The flexibility that you have here, like, there are very particular situations where Fade is going to be your preferred thing. You're going to wish that you had saved your Invoke Authority for Fade. Completely 100% agree with that. But Moloch's Blessing, I think, is just, ooh, that is real strong. And remember, that can crit. So let's bring that up, that 10.5 times 5. So yeah, average damage on that being 105. It's something to consider. I marked Flash of Brimstone as purple. As a reaction to placing a seal on a target, you can teleport to an unoccupied space that you can see adjacent to the target. It kind of disincentivizes you from loading all of your Moloch's Blessing all at one time. If you do use your Moloch's Blessing in one encounter, completely lose all your seals. They do refresh on a short or long rest. Your Invoke Authority is once per long rest. Like, yeah. So this is a great positioning tool, right? And it's one that, like, you can use Moloch's Blessing and then later on use Flash of Brimstone. Just make sure you get your short rest in between those, because otherwise you just won't have a feature with Flash of Brimstone. And then that fight that you do use Moloch's Blessing, you then lose this feature. So there's kind of an anti-synergetic feel between these two. Despite them both being very strong effects, them being both on the same class, you're really having to figure out, all right, which one would I rather have? Really great positioning this fight, or a huge spike of damage? So yeah. With your bonus proficiencies, they're reinforcing that this is supposed to be a pretty roguey feeling Illrigger. When you choose Moloch as your arc double, you gain proficiency with stealth, acrobatics, and thieves tools. So all those beneficial, they're all going to come into play a lot. So that's all going to be purple. Dagger Adept, so they're getting 4 features here at 3rd level. Your training makes you skilled with certain light weapons. While 2-weapon fighting with daggers and or sickles, you can add your ability modifier to the damage of the second attack, and you can draw or stow 2 daggers or sickles when you would normally only be able to draw or stow 1. At 5th level, your daggers and sickles do 1d6 damage. At 11th level, your daggers and sickles do 1d8, and then 1d10. Because they're enforcing this kind of a duelist sort of playstyle here, I'm looking at the fighting styles that you can get with this, and like, you know, Bravado might be pretty nice, right? Like, you're most likely going to be investing into dexterity while you're going with this subclass. It won't benefit from lies because this is specifically a 2-handed melee weapon. Treachery, I mean, it's kind of hard to knock that. It really, if I'm thinking about a build with this, Dagger Adept with Treachery is going to look real scary. And if you're making a bonus action, so their bonus action on their first turn at least looks a little bit clunky, where you're either going to go Baleful Interdict or make the second attack, right? Like, your Baleful Interdict is going to be something you're going to be wanting to do all the time. Like, that is such a good use of your bonus action. Making the attack action afterwards, like, if you're out of uses of your Baleful Interdict, if, let's say, you did Moloch's Blessing and now you want to do this, and their bonus action is going to be pretty prioritized on being able to use your Baleful Interdict. And this Flash of Brimstone here, that might be a thing. Like, looking at Moloch's Blessing, it might be weaker than what I'm thinking, just for the fact of, like, the rest of this subclass isn't really playing into a super heavy front load, throw all of this out at one time kind of a thing. Because even on the turn that you throw this out, you won't be able to, like, get 2 attacks in order to, yeah. But the improvement onto your daggers and sickles doing additional damage, I mean, per turn, well, and you've got extra attacks. So we're talking, okay, so eventually 3d10 damage. Yeah, so attack, bonus action attack. You've got all, yeah, so Dagger Adept, I will mark all of this in purple, despite thinking that their bonus action is kind of clunky. Relentless, your movement speed increases by 10 feet at 7th level. Oh, and I need to talk about Marked for Death. So at 6th level, your interdict improves, so your connection to Moloch's power deepens. If you hit an interdicted creature with a melee attack, you can mark them for death. That target has disadvantage on attack rolls that do not include you until the end of its next turn. While that creature is interdicted, it must make a wisdom saving throw. DC equals 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your charisma modifier whenever it tries to leave your reach. On a failure, its speed becomes 0 until the start of its next turn. These effects last until it is no longer interdicted, you leave its reach, or it leaves your reach. So it can't make this saving throw again at the end of each of its turns. So it's just like stuck there. What you can do with this, right? I'm looking at Marked for Death, and I do think that this needs the ability to remake this saving throw again, just to be like, a DM's going to get real frustrated with this. Real frustrated. I'm going to say Marked for Death. I am actually going to move that up because I think that needs something to reel it back in, especially because you do Marked for Death and Fade, you become invisible. So this thing, like, oh man, that is a pretty effective taunt right there. I think that with the playstyle that this is trying to evoke, especially with this Invoke Authority Fade right here, I don't think it's going to be really healthy for this, especially in its current state, to be available on that. I know that there's other builds that can possibly do that, probably by 6th level, maybe. Nothing's immediately coming to mind. Only a memory. So starting at 9th level, your Mastery of Shadow grants you advantage on Dexterity stealth checks when taking the Hide action, and Hide becomes a bonus action for you. Dig this. Purple. Absolutely. 10th level, He is Darkness. While within 10 feet of an interdicted enemy, shadows envelop you, and you gain the benefits of half cover. So you gain a +2 to your armor class and Dexterity saving throws. With this, it's like, maybe I can see that Moloch's Blessing is something that you might be trying to kind of save up, maybe in the game loop of this all. Like, what's the combo here we're thinking of, right? You do Flash of Brimstone, place that on the target, right? You can teleport up to it, and then you can hit it with a melee attack, do the Mark for Death, as well as He is Darkness. Your AC increases. Suddenly you go from being a midline harasser to like full-on frontline. I think my conflict might still be coming from how Marked for Death is working. Maybe if this was like the target can make the save again, because like this is such really crazy lockdown you're able to do on one creature. Like, this is an insanely strong controller. Let's move on to Evasion. So standard Evasion that we see on like Rogue and Monk. Starting at 13th level, whenever you're prompted to make a Dexterity saving throw to take only half damage from an effect, you instead take no damage if you succeed on the saving throw, and only half damage if you fail. So we know why this is good, right? Like, and do I need to really elaborate on Evasion? Of course, that's going to be purple. Shadow Killer. So at 17th level, you gain dark vision and can see normally in magical darkness. In addition, you can see the exact location of any creatures within 60 feet, using illusion spells to obfuscate their location, such as blur, mirror image, or invisibility. I think Shadow Killer, Relentless is fine with where it's at, but like, I would have liked to have seen Shadow Killer offered possibly a little bit earlier. Flash of Brimstone is really, really nice as a positioning tool. Like the Illrigger has an odd subclass leveling gradient, right? Like, all the subclasses have a ton of features. So with the 17th level here, you're getting dark vision, and there's no like radius on that from what it says. And can see normally in magical darkness. This is just a little bit late for me personally. I'm thinking design wise to be getting something like this. But those are benefits. This other part of this is a little bit situational, but Shadow Killer overall is going to be a strong feature. And then at 18th level, you're going to get Hell's Assassin. Your seals deal 3d10 damage each rather than 3d6 at all crits for a possible, oh god, what is it? Charisma modifier of 5. You have 5 of these seals that can do 3d10. So 5.5, 5.5, 11, 5.5, 16.5. So 82.5 damage on average if you do the full loaded Nova on that. And then if that crits, 165 damage on average. So Hell's Assassin is going to be purple. Shadow form, and this has a mechanic in here that I'm not comfortable with on a character option. Starting at 20th level, and this is 20th level. I know I hear this argument. They're supposed to be pretty ridiculous. Even an insta-kill thing like this, we're just not really used to seeing. As an action, you can become a greater shadow for 1 minute. You gain damage resistance to acid, cold, fire, lightning, thunder, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. You gain incorporeal movement and a flying speed of 50 feet. You can move through other creatures and objects as if they were difficult terrain. You take 5 1d10 force damage if you end your turn inside an object. Your weapon attacks deal necrotic damage, and successful attacks drain 1d4 strength from the target. If this drain reduces the target strength to 0, it dies. There's no saving throw on that, which really worries me. And I know a lot of people might say, well, if it had a saving throw, this wouldn't be all that great. I'll just get through the rest of the feature and I'll come back to that. Otherwise, the drain lasts until the target finishes a short or long rest. If a non-evil humanoid dies from this attack, a new shadow rises from the corpse 1d4 hours later. You cannot use this feature again until you complete a long rest. So this right here, like, you know, how do you really measure the power of this? Most I can figure is, like, I compared it to, like, a lich. And I was like, okay, so you can solo kill a lich that has a strength of 11. Most likely, on average, in 3 or fewer rounds. You've got your action to do extra attacks, so you can do this twice. 2d4 strength that you're, you know, negating from that. I'm just going to assume that that's likely going to be about a 5 that you take out once per turn. If you can chunk that away on your next turn, you're able to chunk this away a little bit more. Or I just worry a bit about shadow form. I try to really shy away from doing these kinds of, like, I know where this came from, right? This came from the shadow. As that going from like monster to characters, we all know that the shadow is way strong for a creature that has that challenge rating, right? Boy, this is a very strong feature. Personally, it's above my comfort for where I'd like to have it at my tables. Now, 20th level, sure, it's not likely I'm ever going to see that, whatever. I don't want to fall into what I'm now calling the Wish Fallacy. And the Wish Fallacy, to me, is anytime that a feature has a real strong amount of power, people seem to dismiss any, like, objections or questions about balance because they say, well, Wizard has Wish. I don't think that Wish should be the metric in which we design features around, because in that case, like, there's no reason why we can't just say that, like, oh, a subclass that gets like 8 features at 3rd level is totally fine. Yeah, that's my pushback against that. If we're gonna have these discussions about game design, and then we've got a spell like Wish, we have to recognize that Wish is designed not so much to just be like the, yeah, I'm gonna insta-kill this thing, right? Wish is designed to push forward a story. You know, the way that Sam Riegel uses Wish on Scanlan, uses Wish in a way to change fate, you know, and Wish is supposed to be very heavy for the story. That's like an actualization of like ultimate power. This is just a thing you can do as an action, become a greater shadow for 1 minute, and then this possible thing of like you can basically guarantee death. Oh man, this needs a saving throw or something, in my opinion. You know, at least that, at the very least that. So yeah, that's gonna be it on the Shadowmaster. Let me know what you all think down in the comment section below. Was I overvaluing some of this stuff, undervaluing it? Is there a combo I'm not thinking about it? I don't know. Let's have that discussion. But I want to give a shout out to my Patreon sponsors. Thank you all so much for helping me keep the lights on around here and coffee in my blood. You all are absolute heroes. And I want to thank you all for being here. I hope you all are staying safe, staying healthy, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.